Years ago when I was in second grade, I'm 22 now, my parents one morning finally felt confident in allowing me to stay home from school by myself and stay home without a babysitter until they came home. That morning my father gave me a house key, showed me the emergency numbers in the yellow book, and gave me instructions on what to do if stupid things happen like the house catching on fire. After school that day I came home, put the key in the door and walked into my house. I felt free. And I felt privileged that I was finally a big boy, and that I could now be on my own at home. Needless to say, I kinda got caught up in the moment, and ate tons of ice cream while watching Terminator on VHS, since my parents would never let us watch anything other than PG-13. Around 5 that day, I heard the doorbell ring. My dad told me to never answer the door by myself, even if they were home. I walked to our family room where I could get a good view of who was out there. Maybe my dad was just getting a package or something. He did always enjoy ordering things online. I saw a middle-aged man standing in a dark blue jacket that I've never seen before. He rang the doorbell again, and I expected him to leave after no one answered. After a third ring, I saw him walk down the steps and I assumed he was leaving. I went back to watching Terminator when I noticed something outside my kitchen window. The man was in our backyard for some odd reason. I felt scared for my life since some stranger was on my property. I ran under the kitchen table and grabbed the cordless phone from the counter and proceeded to call my dad's work number. My dad answered, and I exclaimed how a strange man was in the backyard and was now proceeding to try and open the sliding door. My dad told me to stay where I was and to call the neighbors. He would call 911. I told my dad I loved him, and he said he would call me immediately after he called 911. Before I could call my neighbor, the man was able to somehow open our family room window. I feared for my life and ran to the bathroom and locked the door and called our neighbors. After 30 seconds, I hear my neighbor running through our house, shouting my name to see if I was okay. She said that she saw no one in the house, and we stayed in the bathroom until the police arrived. The police conducted their investigation and told us that they found some fingerprints that matched a recently released convict who was previously in jail for breaking into homes. After that day, my parents did not leave me alone without a babysitter until I went to high school.
Back in 2008, Cloverfield was one of the biggest movies of the year, and I desperately wanted to see it. Most of my friends had already gone to see it, which upset me given that I didn't want to be seen going to the movie theater alone. However, I didn't have work or school on Thursdays, so on Wednesday night, I figured I could get away with going alone to one of the small theaters nearby with a screening of the film at 9:30, since I knew it would be quiet. Well, I showed up, bought a ticket, and immediately realized the entire building was dead. I entered the theater, and much to my surprise, there was not a single person in there. There were 2 large sections of seats in the theater. I sat in the bottom row of the upper section, which was seated just behind a tiny wall. During the quiet parts of the movie, which were very few, I kept thinking that I was hearing something coming from behind me. It was almost like I was hearing a voice. Is someone there? Nothing. I felt like the sounds were just getting louder and closer, but I kept turning around and didn't see anyone. I felt like I was losing my mind. Eventually, the sounds became so loud that it was evident it was a crazed whispering. I was about to nope the fuck out of there, but when I got up and took one last look behind me, a figure popped up quickly from behind the seats just 2 rows up from me, arms flat to their sides and just facing me like a stiff statue. I ran like there was no tomorrow back to the lobby, where I saw nobody, not a single employee. I kept running to the car, took a few seconds to catch my breath once inside, and drove back home. I tried calling the theater that same night. I never got anyone to answer. I didn't bother the next day, and I just tried to let it go. It still freaks me out beyond imagination to this day.
I hike very frequently and was on a trail and about 8 miles from the nearest gravel road. It was just me and my dog. Just to note, I've hiked these trails frequently and have only seen other people during mushroom hunting season and only near where the parking patches are, and this was in January, so it was freezing cold and there were no mushrooms. I'd been going at it for almost 2 hours when I stumbled upon a pile of bones. Large bones, bigger than human, maybe a cow, maybe buffalo, maybe horse. They were completely clean and sun-bleached. No flesh, no fur. I find deer remains all the time. They always have fur on their legs. This means someone or something cleaned them, or their old bones. The scary part is that they were neatly arranged into a pyramid shape, all leaning on each other like a teepee. I was just on this trail the week before and there had been no bones. There had also not been a giant dead animal, and there wouldn't have been any rotting happening because it was 20 Fahrenheit. I stared at them for a while, then turned around and spotted more peculiarities. The tree behind me had several bones strung up and hung in the tree by the trail marks. They swayed in the wind and kinda clunked gently like morbid wind chimes. So this means it had to have been somebody and not some weird raccoons or something. I start to panic because does this mean that somebody's watching me? Am I being warned or stalked? I always go on a select few trails and this is one of my most frequented, and never have I seen someone else out this far. The hairs on my neck stand up because I'm sure I'm in the crosshairs of some serial killer who's been stalking me. I walk with my headphones in. He could have followed me for weeks and I wouldn't have known. My dog freezes and points towards a different large tree 10 yards away. The hair of her scruff raises and she starts to growl and creep toward the tree. I'm panicking. I have nothing other than my hiking stick. My dog barks once. She's 40 pounds, by the way. She's not an attack dog. And she starts sprinting towards the tree. I instinctively crouch down. She reaches the tree and a turkey takes off from the other side, gobbling as it flies away. I can still feel my pulse in my eyes as I watch it fly away. I sigh, pet my dog, and check to make sure I didn't shit myself. I snap a few pictures of the weird bones and make my way back. I still hike through there, and the bones are still there untouched. No way am I touching them. No idea where they came from. Probably some weird old coot trying to scare people. It definitely worked on me.
When I was just a little boy, I had an imaginary friend. Well, at least I thought he was an imaginary friend. Today, I'm not so sure. I would see him from time to time around my house. He was a man and he lurked in the shadows. He was completely black from head to toe and his skin was charred and pockmarked, like a burnt match. I couldn't make out his face or any other features. All I could see were his red eyes. He had the most terrifying red eyes I've ever seen. And even now, when I think of them, it gives me the chills. He appeared at random and without any warning. I would be playing with my toys and all of a sudden he would be there. He never made a sound. He never said a word. He never did anything except stand there staring at me and smiling. Then he would vanish as quietly as suddenly as he had come. As time went by, I got accustomed to his presence. It got to the point where he would just appear and I would just glance at him, then go back to playing with my toys. I could always feel his eyes as he was just standing ever so close and ever so far away at the same time. My family knew about him, but they never saw him themselves. My mother and father thought it was cute that I had an imaginary friend, but when I described him to them, they got a little creeped out. My sister was the only one who believed me. She's the only one who believed he was real, and she said it scared her. One time, I had just finished going to the bathroom and I started washing my hands. I was standing on a little stool so I could reach the sink. All of a sudden, I saw the man out of the corner of my eye. He was walking up the stairs. I called my sister and told her the man was here. She came running over, but just when I was about to point out the man, he walked backwards down the stairs until he was out of sight. When she left, He came creeping back up the stairs. I gave up trying to show him to people because he clearly did not want to be seen. Eventually, my parents moved out the house. I remember seeing the man with the red eyes watching us as we were moving and the van pulled away. He didn't follow us, and I didn't see him again after that. I dismissed him as a figment of my childish imagination. Years passed and I forgot about him. Then, one night, when I was 16 years old, I was walking upstairs to my bedroom. It was after midnight. As I was walking down the hallway, something emerged from one of the other bedrooms. It stepped out into the light and I realized, to my horror, that it was the man with red eyes. I stopped in my tracks and I froze. My heart was in my throat. He just stood there staring at me. The red eyes burned bright and he flashed me a malicious smile. Then, still staring at me, he slowly walked across the hallway into my bedroom. If this was a movie, perhaps I would have chased him down and forced him to tell me who or what he was. Perhaps it would have ended in me fighting to the death, but this wasn't a movie. It was real life, and I did neither of those things. I simply turned around, ran back down the stairs, and fled from my house. I sat on the curb outside, shivering and shaking until dawn arrived. I haven't seen him again since then.